I'm going to be painting a watercolour triptych. So it's going to be 3 sort of individual paintings, but they work together as a whole as well. It's a great way of sort of presenting your work, maybe framing it with 3 sort of individual paintings, but with the same theme. But it's a great way of loosening up in your watercolours as well. So I'm just sketching in horizon with my HB pencil and a few little marks on the sandy shore there. So this again is from my imagination. So I'm wetting the sky with my size 8 mop brush. Give it a good soak, starting off with some Hansa yellow light and buff titanium. And I'm going to paint the sky wet into wet here with the size 8 brush. It's so lovely working on a small scale here, but also going across 3 little mini paintings. It's so freeing up. So I'm mixing up here a little bit of quinacridone burnt orange. You can use burnt sienna with a little bit of raw umber. You can use burnt umber. And a little bit of the Jane's grey. You can use Paynes grey. And I'm just painting sort of damp into wet, some darker clouds there. A little bit more ultramarine, damp into damp, and a little bit more of that raw umber. Again, you can use burnt umber. I'm just literally dipping my brush into some of these delicious colours. A pinch of the Alizarin crimson there, and a little bit more of the burnt umber and raw umber. Because these colours are very semi-moist, you can really pick up the colour. So I'm just playing with them, really mixing up all these rich browns. I want the colours in the sky to be sort of golden dark browns and a great contrast to that lovely sort of yellow sky there. So you've got a real sort of light against dark. So adding a little bit of Pyrrole red with the brown, damp into damp along the horizon, a little bit more of the raw umber. Again, you can use burnt umber. And just painting damp into damp down to the horizon line. There we are. So you can see how that lovely yellow cloud looks so sort of dramatic and atmospheric. Tilting here, adding a little bit of ultramarine damp into damp again to create some dramatic dark clouds there against the light of the sky. Damp into damp right down to the horizon, still tilting. Just seeing what happens, and again experimenting, painting damp into damp here, top right hand corner, building up the darks there while the paint is still damp, tilting to the right to get it moving, to get it blending, to make it look atmospheric and more natural looking. So going to mix up a little bit of the buff titanium. I'm painting wet on dry with the yellow, with a pinch of quinacridone gold, wet into wet, painting up to that horizon, catching the horizon there, but leaving some white as well to create that sort of dramatic light and sparkle, still using that size 8 brush. Mixing up some burnt umber, painting damp into wet there, a little bit more raw umber, it's slightly sort of darker, and a little bit of the grey as well, damp into damp just in the foreground to create some lovely darks there, again creating contrast with that light in the sand area. A little bit of phthalo blue, burnt sienna there. I'm really going for it for all these lovely warm colours. Bit of the Jane's grey right at the bottom there. You could mix ultramarine with burnt sienna. Just experiment and have a play. Bit of phthalo blue here. I've swapped to my size 4 round brush. A little bit more of that grey swiping across, damp into damp across that sandy beach there. But it almost creates a dry brush effect because my brush has hardly any water, it's mostly pigment. You get a little bit of texture there. As you can see, there's got a lot of drama, the light in the sky and the light on the sand. So I'm tilting here just to soften some of those darks. I felt I need a little bit more light, so I'm spritzing here, the middle little painting and the one on the right there, and letting the sky run down as well, and then wiping off with my paper towel there to maintain control. You don't want that great big puddle of water to run back into your painting. So what I'm doing now is I am mixing up again that quinacridone burnt orange and a little bit of the grey, and I'm painting on the horizon there, damp into damp with my size 4 brush. You can use ultramarine and burnt umber or burnt sienna to get this lovely warm dark. So I want to create some distance here, but I want to come away from the sky. So I'm just adding some of that grey there, damp into damp. It bleeds slightly, but it makes it look more natural, especially in the middle there. painting on the left here as well, some smaller marks just to look like land in the distance there, using my size 4 round brush. It's quite nice using this sort of family of warm sort of light, mid and dark colours here, just to get everything looking quite harmonious in the painting. So I'm going to paint a little bit more sort of dark here on the right hand side, almost abstracted marks. And I'm going to paint the people damp into damp. Now, if you're worried about it bleeding too much, let your painting dry and then you can paint these people wet on dry. I'll put a link in the description below of my little people painting tutorial to help you paint little people. But I'm painting damp into damp using the grey with some burnt umber, size 4 brush, some very small heads, and literally a very small arch window for the body and a line, a long thin line for the legs. And I've actually given this little person a little dog as well. It can just be a very small mark, and I've painted some reflections to really ground them on the beach so they don't look like they're floating. I'm mixing up some of the grey here with the phthalo blue, really creamy paint, painting damp into damp, almost damp on dry, and just painting a very small head, the body, literally a thin line for the legs. And I've decided to give this person a friend, a companion. So I'm doing exactly the same thing, small head, arch window for the body, and I put 2 thin lines for the legs. I've given them a little dog, which is just a little sort of round sort of splodge really, and some reflection again to ground them so they don't look like they're floating. So I'm removing the washi tape, and that reveals a white border. And it really does sort of present the paintings, the mini paintings really well. Actually, as 18 little minis, you could even frame that if you wanted to, if you're pleased with what you've done. It's nice to keep something like this sort of as something to look back on, but also you can make little cards out of these or present them as a triptych, or you can even actually enlarge them. If you liked one of them, you could actually make them a bigger painting, and I will be showing you how to do that in one of my upcoming tutorials, so watch this space. So here is a close-up here of all the tutorials. I have to say I really enjoyed this series of mini paintings, and I hope you did too, and that it inspired you to have a go. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you'd like to learn more about watercolour painting and get access to my exclusive tutorials, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? Details about the membership can be found in the description below. Just click Patreon. You will get access to my exclusive tutorials, downloadable outline sketches, and you can cancel anytime. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Happy painting. Bye for now.